And it's happened since Brexit. Go on, riddle me that. Luckily, Seven Bins has the answers.
I'm very clear that the levels of migration are too high and they've got to come down to more sustainable levels. I've been clear about that. It's good to see that the ONS yesterday did say that the levels of migration are now slowing, in their words, which is a welcome step, but we've got more to go. And that's why I announced a policy earlier to clamp down on the number of dependents that students can bring when they're coming here, where we've seen a very significant rise in that. That action that I took represents the single toughest measure that anyone has taken to bring down the levels of legal migration in a very long time. So that should give people a sense of my commitment to bringing migration down. And if we see further abuse of the system, of course we're prepared to act and do more.
You were Chancellor of the Exchequer in the last government. I mean,
this is what I mean by them all being hecklers. Actually, you've heard this happen before, haven't you? When I stumble onto something that the more I think about it, the more I like it. He's heckling governments that he was Chancellor of the Exchequer in. Now, well, I've done more than many other governments have done for a very long time. You were in them! You were in the governments! He's heckling his own government. How can you heckle your own government? Imagine if you went to see a Stuart Lee gig and Stuart Lee turned up in the audience heckling Stuart Lee. Or even if you went to see a normal night at the Comedy Store and the two acts that had already been on started standing at the back of the room lobbing glasses at the fellow who is on the stage now. They are heckling. Listen to it again and tell me that he is not heckling successive Tory governments, many of which he was a part of and all of which he supported.
I'm very clear that the levels of migration are too high and they've got to come down to more sustainable levels. I've been clear about that. It's good to see that the ONS yesterday did say that the levels of migration are now slowing, in their words, which is a welcome step, but we've got more to go. And that's why I announced a policy earlier to clamp down on the number of dependents that students can bring when they're coming here, where we've seen a very significant rise in that. That action that I took represents the single toughest measure that anyone has taken to bring down the levels of legal migration in a very long time. So that should give people a sense
really
of my
big heckle, a very long time, like 13
down.
years.
And if we see further abuse of the system, of course we're prepared to act and do more.
Bringing your family here is not an abuse of the system. That's not even a heckle. It's just thick and wrong. And listen, if you're thinking of coming here to do a master's and drop, 50, 100 grand into the coffers of a university and you want to bring your wife with you, and then they say, oh, you can't bring your wife, you're going to go to Germany. Or you're going to go somewhere else. You're going to go to America. These people are big spenders. I think I feel a song coming on. So who's he going to go after? Well, it looks like he's going to name the students. I gave you the three choices a minute ago. But he's going to go after them by saying, we're going to make it a less attractive place to come and study for you. As there is a true international free market in tertiary, in higher education, the kind of people coming to do degrees or master's degrees. Stian Warrington makes a good point. He says, Stuart Lee heckling Stuart Lee sounds like a really good gig. It does actually, doesn't it? I'm sure Charlie Brooker could make it happen. It's 10:56. Steve's in Newcastle. Steve, what's going on?
Hi, James. Third-time caller. Nice to speak to you.
When are you going to stop keeping count? It's not necessary.
Well, yeah, at my age, keeping count, it just keeps me mentally active. You know?
So it's like a Sudoku. Go on, man.
Anyway, Brexit. Brexit concealed the problem because we could, without any issues at all, we could bring in the labour that we required and the skills we required from Europe. Because we can't do that now. So what you were proposing earlier on in your programme, why is this happening? It's an entirely deliberate policy on the part of the current government. They can't control immigration because they know perfectly well that there are roles within the health service, social care, agriculture that they simply can't fill. And the game they're playing now, I think, is related to that. I don't know if you heard Mel Stride on the media round this morning. He described their ability to control immigration as a Brexit opportunity, which is to me is.
He's doing that now. He's doing that in 2023, just after the biggest increase ever in the post-Brexit. Oh, fair play to Mel Stride. I think we've got a new winner.
But here's a nasty one that he said, and I wouldn't have expected this of him, actually. I tended to regard him as one of the more reasonable Tories.
You're like me, you see. There it is again, letting your optimism get in the face of reality.
I know.
Go on.
Well, he apparently says that he's going to control immigration. This is how futile their efforts are, because what he's going to do is going to make sure that disabled people who aren't working will lose their benefits.
Right.
And that is going to bring more people into the workplace and control immigration. So the Brexit factor can't be ignored. And the other factor, as far as I can see...
That's gross, isn't it?
Oh, it's vile. absolutely vile. And that's exactly what he said. It was on the Radio 4 Today programme this morning, interviewed by Nick Robinson, who tried to get some sense out of him, but as usual, the Tory system is you talk over the interviewer, and that's what he did. But yes, it is vile. And the Brexit thing, it's dead simple. We cannot staff what we need in this country. Therefore, immigration will come from elsewhere, therefore it allows them to play a racist card.
Yeah, but then why are they doing that though? When it comes back to bite them on the backside as violently as it has today and yesterday, that's the bit. Maybe I'm crediting them with thinking ahead of a 24-hour news cycle, which is always a dangerous thing to do.
I think you're back to the Overton window.
Yeah.
I think that the Tory political stance has moved so far to the right that overt racism, which is what they're now using to deal with immigration, overt racism has become acceptable.
And well, that's why I think in the next hour we'll move on to what it's like for people who've been here for years but weren't actually born here, because I can't even begin to imagine how much your existence has been polluted by this rhetoric and by these arguments. Thank you, Steve. An excellent hat-trick there. Three down. How many? Who knows how many to go? It's coming up to 11 o'clock. It is bizarre. And I just want to stress again that none of the parameters for that conversation were disputable or controversial or even opinions. All three elements of that conversation were true. The people who have demanded reductions in immigration because they insist it's bad for our country have been in charge of our country for 13 years, and immigration has risen like never before. How can you make sense of those three factors? And I think we had a fairly good crack at it, but in many ways it's raised more problems than it's solved.